On September 9, 2020, a magnitude 3.1 earthquake was felt in New Jersey and New York City. The USGS reported at 2 a.m. that the quake's epicenter was in Freehold, New Jersey, and lasted 13 seconds, with a depth of only 3 miles. USGS geophysicist Robert Sanders stated there were 2 previous recorded quakes with a magnitude 3.0 or larger in Freehold, a 3.1 earthquake in 1992 and a 3.5 earthquake in 1979. According to John Armbruster, a senior associate at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory at Columbia University, there is a consistent pattern in the eastern United States that the earthquakes are responding to a squeezing force in the northeast to southwest direction. There isn't one big fault line. The rocks around the New York City area are hundreds of millions of years old. They've had a rough life. In a pure mathematical sense, New York is overdue for a magnitude 5 earthquake. The USGS also reported that more than 5,500 people submitted witness reports on the USGS Felt It online website. And the Freehold Police Department said dispatch responded to dozens of calls and that the epicenter of the earthquake was just 500 feet from the police station. A spokesperson for the department said the quake felt like the floor dropped out for them. New Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection says the state is probably overdue for a more significant earthquake, like the magnitude 5.5 temblor that struck in 1884. Such a quake, were it to strike today, would result in severe damage and would likely cause fatalities. According to Thomas Pratt of the USGS Earthquake Hazards Program, earthquakes are very infrequent, but if a large one happens, it would be much more devastating in the east than something out west. The reason is everything out west is built to withstand earthquakes. Most buildings in the east are not. And New York, contrary to what most people realize, is prone to earthquakes, as reported by local news meteorologist Michael Goldrick. New York State has a long history of earthquakes. Since the early to mid-1700s, there have been over 550 recorded earthquakes that have been centered within the state's boundary. New York has also been shaken by strong earthquakes that occurred in southeast Canada and the mid-Atlantic states. The largest earthquake that occurred within New York's borders happened on September 5, 1944. It was a magnitude 5.9 and did major damage on the town of Messina. In more recent memory, some of the strongest quakes occurred on April 20, 2002, when a 5.0 rattled the state and was centered on Au Sable Forks area near Plattsburgh, New York. Furthermore, earthquakes in the northeast U.S. and southeast Canada are not as intense as those found in other parts of the world, but can be felt over a much larger area. The reason for this is the makeup of the ground. In our part of the world, the ground is like a jigsaw puzzle that has been put together. If one piece shakes, the whole puzzle shakes.
But all of this is in fulfillment of prophecy. For as John of Patmos said, I looked when the Son of Man broke the 6th seal, and there was a great earthquake. Revelation 6:12. I'm Dr. Andrew Ho, and I have a doctorate in theology. And I'm here to explain the theology of the prophecies. For as we know, John of Patmos in Revelation spoke of 7 seals that would be broken before the Son of Man returns. And as many are well aware of, we are in the midst of the 4th seal. For as the book of Revelation says, when the Lamb broke the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature saying, Come. I looked, and behold, an ashen horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and Hades was following with him. Authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by the wild beasts of the earth. Revelation 6, 7 and 8. For we are in the midst of the fourth seal. For we are in the midst of pestilence and plagues. For we are in the midst of the COVID crisis, and many more plagues are soon to follow. And the fifth seal has already been opened. For the fifth seal was opened when St. Stephen was stoned to death as a martyr for the word of God. For as the prophecy says, when the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God, and because of the testimony which they had maintained. Revelation 6:9. But the fifth seal does not apply to many of us, for the fifth seal deals with the prophets, martyrs, and saints who were killed for the word of God. But the sixth seal does apply to us. For when the sixth seal is opened, then the seventh shall be opened when the Son of Man returns. For the prophecy says, I looked when he broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth, as a fig casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. The sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Revelation 6:12 through 14. Thus the sixth seal is the great quake of New York City. And this is consistent with all the biblical prophecies. For just as Isaiah prophesied of the sixth seal, its streams will be turned into pitch, and its loose earth into brimstone, and its land will become burning pitch. It will not be quenched night or day. Its smoke will go up forever. From generation to generation it will be desolate. None will pass through it forever and ever. Isaiah 34.
New York City lies just 40 miles north of the epicenter. And as Armbruster from the Lamont Doherty warned, in a pure mathematical sense, New York is overdue for a magnitude 5 earthquake. And contemporary authors have recently recognized the inherent risks of this city. For as author and environmental theorist Catherine Miles told Trevor Noah on The Daily Show just a few years ago, Miles is the author of the New York bestseller Quakeland, which investigates how soon an earthquake is expected to happen in New York City and how ill-prepared the country is to handle it. New York is 40 years overdue for a significant earthquake. It's a national problem, said Miles. And according to several seismologists at Columbia University in New York City, New York is positively vivisected by faults. Most of them fall into two groups: those running northeast and those running northwest. Combined, they create a brittle grid underlying much of Manhattan. And remember this, New York City experiences greater than a 5.0 quake at least once every 100 years. And the last one occurred in 1884, which that means the new city is significantly overdue for a major earthquake. But of much greater concern than an earthquake is what lies just upstream from New York City. For the Indian Point nuclear plant is a 3-unit nuclear power plant located in Buchanan, New York, just north of the city. It sits on the east bank of the Hudson River, about 25 miles north of Midtown Manhattan. The reactors for this plant were originally built in 1962 and produce about 25% of the electricity utilized in New York City. They were originally supposed to be shut down over 25 years ago. Furthermore, in 2008, researchers from the Columbia University Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory discovered that the Ramapo Fault passes less than 1 mile north of the Indian Point nuclear power plant. Also, an MSN report based on the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission data concluded that the Indian Point nuclear reactor number 3 has the highest risk of earthquake damage in the country. And And recall, in the wake of the 2011 Fukushima nuclear meltdown following a massive earthquake in Japan, the U.S. State Department warned that any American in Japan should stay beyond a 50-mile radius from that area. As such, columnist Peter Applebaum wrote in the New York Times that such a radius around Indian Point would include almost all of New York City except for Staten Island, almost all of Nassau County and much of Suffolk, all of Bergen County, New Jersey, all of Fairfield, Connecticut. However, because this is such a densely populated region, this scale of evacuation would not be feasible. The report had to conclude that current radiological response systems and capabilities are not adequate to overcome their combined weight and protect the people from an unacceptable dose of radiation in the event of a release from Indian Point.
Thus the sixth seal and the destruction of New York City fulfills the prophecy of the sixth seal. For as it says at the sixth seal, I looked when the Son of Man broke the sixth seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became like blood, and the stars of the sky fell to the earth, as a fig tree casts its unripe figs when shaken by a great wind. The sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Then the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the commanders, and the rich, and the strong, and every slave and free man hid themselves in the caves, and among the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Revelation 6:12-16. Thus New York City is the sixth seal. And when it comes down, all the kings and all the great men and all the presidents will understand that the end is here. And all the rich men and all the wealthy shall hide in their caves, for the day of their wrath is near. And now that the end is here, we hope that you'll come back again and join us next week at theprophecynews.com.